Okay, I'll just ask that everyone mute except for the panelists. Panelists, if you want to be muted, that's fine. Just unmute yourself when cued. So everyone, welcome back to our 11th now Chamber City County Connects You teleconference. I'm Tara Doyle-Enneking, the CEO of the Puyallup Sumner Chamber of Commerce. Our topic today is Q&A with AWB and ESD. So first we will hear from Tommy Gantz, the Government Affairs Director over Tax and Fiscal Policy for the AWB, the Association of Washington Business. Tommy will provide us an update on their newly launched Rebound and Recovery website, along with a report on the work the Rebound and Recovery Task Force is doing. Next, we will hear from Scotty Michael, the Legal Services Coordination Manager for Employment System Policy at the Washington State Employment Security Department. Our format today will be as follows. We'll hear from each of our panelists, and then we'll check in with our local leaders for any relevant updates, at which time we will open it up to questions for the panelists and our city, county, and state officials. We're hoping that these timely topics will evoke an open discussion with our audience and panelists. We ask that you either utilize the Zoom hand-raising feature, which I'd really love to see today. Again, I think this is the kind of group that will have a lot of questions, and I'd rather hear from you. If you're more comfortable typing the question in, that's fine. But we're encouraging you to just, on the chat, just say, question 4, and if it's for Tommy or for Scott or for one of our officials, just write that, and then we'll turn to you and you can ask your question. If you prefer to email your question, you can do that too, and that will be done at admin@PuyallupSumnerChamber.com. Lori, as we all know, Lori Waltier, will be assisting me with the facilitation of the questions. So once again, thank you all for tuning in. We have prided ourselves in bringing timely topics, and today with breaking news from the ESD is one more great opportunity to be able to do that. So thank you for tuning in. We also will be going forward using this platform to be able to meet some of our candidates at the county council level, our U.S. congressional seat, and also the state seats. So we'll continue to use this reserved hour for, again, just moving forward with timely topics. Always open to hear from you on suggestions, and we'll be moving into some of the candidate interviews as well. So without further ado, let's please have Tommy start today. We'd love to hear first a little bit about your role with the AWB, and then also just, I guess, the history of the AWB. Not all may know about it, and so I'd be curious to just help, I guess, set the tone for who the AWB is, and then now what your focus is. So Tommy, welcome and thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity. I would like to preemptively apologize if you hear a dog in the background. We are fostering a trained Coast Guard rescue dog, and he's not as trained as you'd think. So I would like to apologize if that happens. I think we're in a good spot now. I'm Tommy Gantz. I'm the Government Affairs Director for Tax and Fiscal Policy with AWB, which is the Association of Washington Business. And for those of you that are unfamiliar, the Association of Washington Business is the oldest and largest business association in Washington State. We serve as the state's Chamber of Commerce and are recognized by the National Association of Manufacturing as the state's Manufacturing and Technical Association. We have somewhere roughly around 7,000 members statewide. We've been very excited to be a part of this task force. The impetus for us getting involved in this recovery piece is when the governor sent out a call to manufacturers for them to pivot to making PPE. We were asked by the Department of Commerce to come in and assist with those efforts. We didn't initially understand what way we'd be playing a role. And as time progressed, what we realized is that for the Department of Commerce, we became their messaging piece to ensure that manufacturers were following the process. And as we went through, we realized that the efforts that the Department of Commerce were doing to procure PPE for the medical community maybe wasn't the right fit for all the manufacturers, in particular some of the smaller manufacturers. Really what the state was looking for was larger manufacturers that could pivot and produce in large quantity and compete with some of that pricing on sort of the scale that Asia can provide. So for us, that was an opportunity for us to step in and see how can we help our manufacturers. What I was doing was essentially providing every business resource that I knew. If ASTM or ISO had a free PPE standard, manufacturing marketplace became available for free, I was able to get that information out to the manufacturing community and just get them going in the right direction. There is no one size fits all approach, and everyone had a different goal. For some people, they wanted to be able to utilize the PPP loans to keep their people employed. And so they were happy to donate that product because they were able to use that PPP loan. For some people, they needed to be able to sell the product to keep their business going, recover lost business in other areas. And pivoting to making other product and product diversification has been a topic for a long time in the aerospace community, which is, I forgot to tell you a little bit about my background. I'm new to AWB. I came from Boeing. I've been in the aerospace sector for a number of years with an overall function and supply chain. I came from Boeing as an analyst, and AWB approached me and gave me a really great opportunity to do something a little bit bigger and grow and develop my career. So I jumped on the opportunity, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect in what we are doing in combination with what my background is. It's been very helpful. So I have a lot of ties in the aerospace community, and that's something that we've always been talking about anyway, is product diversification. Over the course of the last month or so, the conversation has really evolved from manufacturers reaching out to me to businesses and members coming to me and saying, I have to reopen, I need to get ready. I don't know where to get this PPE. I can't find it anywhere. Can you help me? So I was making these individual connections, and in the interim, we had developed something called the Rebound and Recovery Task Force. It's comprised predominantly of our board of directors and members of the AWB Institute. And that task force split into two subgroups, one focused on business toolkits and one focused on a solution to the issue of PPE in the state. So I would like to show you sort of the fruit of that, that project. We're still meeting. This is going to be an evolution and process. In fact, what's active and what I'm going to show you today is going to be different next week. We have some great new features, some different automation and identification features in the PPE Connect portal. So I will try to share my screen here. Can you see my screen? Can everyone see my screen? Okay, so this is the Rebound and Recovery portal. And there's really two areas, and you can get there from a variety of ways. You can get there from the PPE Connect or the Business Toolkit, either way. But another feature that's coming, and I don't know when it's coming, but I'm hoping next week, that I think is really exciting, is we're going to have kind of how we got here and about this portal, how we got to the place where we are, and a little bit more about what this portal is intended to do. Right now, we were just focused on getting it up and functional so people could dive in and start using it. The most exciting feature I think that's coming is a heat map that shows you by county where you're at. Are you phase 1, phase 2, similar to what is on the governor's page, but should have some additional features. The first thing that we really focused on was the business toolkit. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the Madrona toolkit that's out there. What we did is we reviewed tons of businesses who gave us their best practices that were currently functioning and operational. And we looked at things like the Madrona toolkit. We went out and looked at every other state's toolkits to see, what was the best. But we kind of, like what Chris likes to say, is we applied the sort of Weight Watchers slim down of this. The Madrona toolkit and some of those other things, while they're really great tools, they get into so much detail, it can be really confusing, and it's pretty industry specific. We wanted to do something very high level, very easy to access for someone who maybe doesn't have a lot of resources, isn't technically savvy, sort of the smaller businesses, the mom and the pops who don't have the resources out there to hire a PR firm, who don't have, the money to go out and print out all these fancy floor stickers. So we developed this toolkit, and it's got, a description of some things that you can do to be successful. And it's split into two areas: communicating with employees and communicating with your customers. And these are just a very high level, non-industry specific tools that you can use. So for example, the Safe Work Plan template is used for communicating with your employees. What are you as an organization doing? And this can be printed out, it can be distributed via email, whatever your level of technological savvy is. What we're not doing is going industry specific, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. So where it's possible, we're going to link you to the governor's requirements for your particular industry, where you can get things that are already out there from the CDC, where you can understand your local guidelines. And there's some directions for use. And then here's the crux. You can go in and put your company name, your company logo, you make some adjustments, and then you just print it out or email it, get rid of the stuff you don't need, and ta-da. This is what we're doing on social distancing. You're gonna put your bullet points for your business, you know, you're gonna tailor this for your own individual business. This is what we're gonna do to deal with customer traffic. This is what we're gonna do in terms of protective equipment. This is how we're gonna do the sanitation and cleaning. This is what we're gonna do for our employees and their health screening. I mean, we give you other guidelines to reference, any specific guidelines you wanna use for your organization, and you're done. So that's one tool that's in there. Here's some basically an employee training video. So there's a lot of companies out there who want to train their employees, but they don't have a media team. They can't do this. So George Riddell, who's on our board, he's great. He is from Big House Productions. He created a training video, and I'm just gonna I could turn the volume off here.
Hi, I'm George Riddell. I'm president of Big House Productions.
I don't know how to turn the volume off, but basically what he does, it's about an 8-minute video. He goes through and he teaches you how to create a Zoom account for free, how to use a upload server for free, and how to record a video on Zoom for your employees. So you can create your own training video for free at no cost. And he goes into it with very easy explanations. Even a novice who's not very familiar with, you know, who's not very tech savvy can go in and do this. So it's a really great tool that he developed for this. We've got some employee and visitor logs. And then there's some tools for communicating with your customer. Let's say you want to print some posters out and post them around your business. Here's some instructions on that. You put your logo or your company name in there and you make the adjustments where you need to, highlight it in yellow, print it out, use some clear tape, laminate it, whatever level you want to take this to, you can. However simple you want to keep this, you can. If you're the kind of business that putting it on the window with a piece of clear plastic tape is great for you, fine. If you want to laminate it or take it to a printer, you can do that. And so there's a whole variety of posters here that you can use. You can print it on regular paper, or you can take it and make it bigger. You can do it in black and white, or you can change the text and do it in color. And so it's just a variety of very simple tools that you can use. We have some floor stickers. Let's say you're a very small store or a very small business and you're gonna have a few customers in. You don't have the funds or even a color printer. You can print this out, clear tape, tape it to the floor. You wanna take it to a printer and put it on some of the fancy vinyl floor decals, you can do that. And then we offer it in the monotone, we offer it in black and white, and then we have a gradient version. Let's say you're not super social media savvy, but you want to get the word out to your customers. This is what we're doing. They've created some graphics that are pretty simple and easy to understand. And this will open up in a PowerPoint document. And it basically is really cool. It says, this is what you say in your post. This is the graphic that goes with it. So if you're going on Instagram, you have to put a picture with it. Here's the graphic you put, here's the text you use, and there's pages and pages and pages of suggested text. And it kind of goes into a variety of areas. Still very high level, most businesses can use this. We have a, if you want to send some letters or email blast about your practices that you want to do. Here's some sample verbiage that you can use for your email blast. And I'm not going to spend too much time because I want, you know, if you want to go through there and look at it more closely, you can. I just want to give you an idea of what's there. This is a great tool that could be used by any business. Mostly the focus is for small businesses that don't have the same resources as, you know, the larger to mid-sized businesses that have probably a team of media people who can handle this for them, or graphic artists, or, you know, that kind of level of savvy. You can get to the PPE Connect portal by either going back to the main page, or you can just click up here. I think this is probably what most people have been excited about. And the first 2-3 days that this has been launched, we've already had 500 requests go out. This is very simple. And this is going to be different next week too. Right now, if a manufacturer wants to be added, they're going to go fill out a form. It's a Google Doc. It's going to come to me, and I'm personally vetting each company, and I'm manually adding them. One of the things that we're finding out, and one of the things that we're struggling with a little bit, is that we want the focus of this. We have 2 goals. Our first goal is we want to help Washington state businesses who have to get back to work, who need PPE to help their business reopen. The second is we really would like to keep the focus on Washington businesses. We would like the PPE to come from Washington businesses. We think it's important to bring that manufacturing back to the state. And that was ultimately the impetus for getting us involved in this project. The struggle here and the reality is there are some gaps in the supply chain, and there are a lot of distributors in this state. So we don't want to be, you know, we don't want to be the PPE police. We don't want to be deciding what the end user, you know, where they get their PPE. We're not regulating pricing or quality. Obviously, if there are problems with the manufacturers listed and they're not ethical, we want to know about that. You know, we want to have that communication, but we are not, we're just connecting people, and that's what this tool is doing. But, you know, we have a lot of Washington-based businesses. For example, Barger & Ellingson is a Washington-based business, but they get some of their product from overseas. So right now, this is how it works. You'll put in your information, and you'll say, let's say I want eye protection, you want some gloves, and you want some face shields. You'll hit submit. You'll put in the quantity, approximate quantity that you think you want. Say we want 15 boxes of gloves. These are the manufacturers that are going to populate. It's going to tell you right now what they make and what their minimum order quantity is. The challenge that we have, well, what we're going to be doing different going forward once we have our second iteration out, is there will be some sort of member verification that will tell you this is a verified AWB member. The second thing is that because we have so many distributors in the state, it's not up to us to say, hey, you know, we don't want to give you business because your stuff comes from overseas. At the same time, we want the focus to be on Washington business. So on the next iteration, it will say these are Washington manufacturers that we're proud to say sell PPE, and those will be the results that populate first, are the Washington-based manufacturers. If the end user chooses, or they don't see the product that they like in here from a Washington-based business, they will have the option to view all results and look at distributors who have product maybe that's coming. Right now, I've only added people who have a mix of product who are selling both Washington state products and they have product from Asia. There's not really a great way for us to differentiate yet. And we want to give the user the option to pick the person that's closer to them. I know for some of the chambers I've been presenting to, particularly like Spokane, it's really important that they support their Spokane businesses first. I'm also learning that there are a lot of distributors in Spokane. So I'm going to leave that to the end user to make that decision. And so that's how that's going to work. I'm not going to hit the request for quote button because they'll actually get a quote because this is live now. But what you simply do is if you see something you want, you hit request quote, and an email goes directly to that manufacturer. They've given us a direct contact name and an email address, and a quote goes to them. I get copied on it. and it says, hey, this customer wants more information on this, and then they begin the connection. If the manufacturer sends them a quote and the customer doesn't respond, that's up to the customer. This is really just to take us out of the mix and make sure that everyone knows all of the options that are out there. And of course, the line of products is limited right now based on the amount of suppliers that we have in there. Currently, about 68 people have signed up to participate. Some of them are from out of state and some of them are distributors. I'm not including people at this point that are out of state. As we progress and we go through in a month, let's say we have some gaps in the supply chain, our first goal is to partner with our sister states, partner with Oregon and Idaho, and maybe link to some of their resources. I know they have their own portals, but again, we were really trying to keep the focus on Washington-based businesses. That being said, it's almost impossible to do that, given some of the limitations of the site. So that pretty much sums up my portal. I know that the Institute is also working on, as we go for, and we're looking at different phases of reopening, they're working on a Washington Vitality dashboard that's going to tell you about the health of each county. They're also working on a workforce development tool, but I'm not super looped into that, so I couldn't speak too much on that today. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
This is fantastic. I know this was just newly launched and heard whispers of what was coming, but didn't realize really how well built out it is already. And really just the simplicity of it is what we all need right now too. Just print, laminate if you like, signs are there, get your PPE. So thank you so much for sharing this. We will absolutely make sure it's on our website, and I will rerun this segment tomorrow in our newsletter with this video again and links, and kind of really try to punctuate this. This is fabulous. Are you, while I have you, and we are going to turn to questions at the very end, but while I sort of have you, can you, maybe this is in your area, not in your area, I know the focus has been on stuff like this, resources for business, but can you talk a little bit about some of the policy work or lobbying or advocacy that's happened on from the AWB on behalf of businesses?
Yeah, so one thing before I forget about the business toolkit, we are looking for your feedback. We don't know what we don't know. We took a stab at this as a group to say, what do we think businesses need? So if you think that there's a tool out there that your business needs and it's not here, there's a button. Please let us know. That's the only way that this site is going to evolve and get better. And we are looking for that feedback from you all and from your members. In terms of the advocacy work, one of the things that we're going to be pushing for in the next legislative session is some tax breaks or incentives around manufacturing, specifically with PPE. One of the things that we're discovering is that Washington State is a great area for manufacturing. That being said, a lot of the challenges with this pandemic have shown us that a lot of this type of material, pharmaceuticals and PPE is made overseas. And when other countries are the ones that are making this, obviously their first response, and it's natural, it's not a negative, I don't think, is to protect your own citizens. And so it's made it very hard for our medical personnel, our first responders, and now our businesses to get the products that they need to be safe. And so we would like to see maybe some tax relief or some initial, a time period of tax breaks around manufacturers of PPE and pharmaceuticals in the state to help businesses decide, maybe I do want to diversify my product. Maybe so many people want to help. That's what I've heard from manufacturers is, I don't know what I can do. I don't know what I can make. This is what I do now, but I want to help. Another thing that was a talk around the PPP loan is there was some discussion that the Department of Revenue might potentially tax those loans. I did get an official statement from the Department of Revenue that they will not be taxing those PPP loans. So I think that that's some positive news for everyone. That's the limit of the advocacy work that I've been involved with. Of course, we have Amy Anderson, who's great. She does work at the federal level. A lot of her work is focused around the medical industry and education. We've got Peter Godlewski, who does environmental policy, and Mike Ennis, who does transportation, a lot of construction industry related policy. And these are all topics that are going to come up and be related to this. How is it going to change the conversation in Olympia around, the hot topics that happened in the last session? Some people are saying that maybe some of the policy areas, the conversation will look a little bit different. I think it's going to be a mix. And those are the people that would really be best suited to talk about advocacy in an area other than tax and fiscal policy, because I am very new to AWB. Oh, you're on mute.
So just also another quick question, I guess this is a great platform for folks to now learn about the great work that AWB is doing. It appears this website is open for all, not just members, correct? And
that was really important to us too, to make sure that
Yep.
everyone in the state could access this.
I think that's fantastic. Absolutely. I want to let you go ahead and plug, however, that if folks want just a direct channel to take advantage and support the work you're doing, just what do you need to do to become a member?
We have a membership team. I'm embarrassed to say that's not my area. If you would like to send me an email, I would be glad to get you in touch with someone in the membership team. We have membership available in several areas. We have sponsorship opportunities available. We recently received a very generous sponsorship to help us procure some PPE that will go potentially, I think the talk is, at least at this point, is that it's going to go to some of the local chambers to disseminate to their businesses in need. Businesses have been really hit hard, and some of the businesses aren't going to be able to afford to go out and just buy that PPE, but they're trying to pay their employees. They have so many other costs, and so we would really like to help in any way that we can. So I'd be happy to get you in touch with membership. It would be wonderful.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much. I'm sure we have questions that'll be stacking up for you here shortly, but we are first going to turn now to Scotty Michael with Washington State Employment Security Department. I imagine he has a whole new recipient base, a totally different looking work day than pre-COVID, and also a lot more press time as of late. So he is prepared to give us an update on all of that, including some really good news that came in today. So thank you so much for being here, Scott.
Yes, thanks for having me. It's always my pleasure to come out on these webinars and get out of my normal line of work, which is sitting at my computer and typing emails. So unfortunately, in order to share the good news, I have to start off with, of course, the bad news that everybody who has seen a newspaper lately has heard about, which is that there has been a large quantity of unemployment fraud that has hit Washington. Anytime you have any type of disaster, and folks who live in hurricane zones can tell you this, as soon as a hurricane hits, the scammers and the thieves and the crooks come out to try to take people's money. This has been an economic disaster for the people of this state and for this country. And of course, the thieves and the crooks and the scammers have come out and taken advantage of the generous benefits that Washington has been offering. And in some ways, the amount of fraud that has really been focused on Washington is kind of a backhanded compliment. It's the worst kind of backhanded compliment we could get, which is because Washington was the first state to turn on all of the federal benefits that were available to the CARES Act to Washingtonians. Because we have a supportive benefit amount that is larger and more generous than many other states in this country, we quickly became the focus for much of the targets of the thieves. And unfortunately, we were hit so far the worst. We haven't been the only state that has been hit. Many other states have been hit, and we are talking with those other states and sharing the lessons that we've learned. But unfortunately, yes, we have been hit. So what has been happening as far as the fraud? First off, one is that the Employment Security Department hasn't been hacked. So folks should not be going on to be afraid to file an unemployment claim with the fear that their identity will be stolen from the Employment Security Department. What we're discovering is that this is personal information that has already been stolen. There have been a number of large identity theft hacks that have occurred in previous years, the most notable of which has been like the Equifax hack of 2017. And so what scammers will do is they'll hold on to that information and wait for the right time with which to deploy it. And unfortunately, this has been the right time in which to deploy it. And so what they are doing is they're doing a claim or doing a type of fraud we call impostor fraud, which is basically where you use stolen personal information and then you use it to file unemployment claims on behalf of other people. And so you take stolen information, available public information. For example, we've seen a lot of public employees have been the subject of imposter fraud because we, as in public employees, have a lot more of our information out there for the public than other types of private employees. And so that's one of the unfortunate things about living in an open society where people want to know about the employees who serve them while the employees have more of their information out there for people to digest. And then what happens was when the thieves are then able to file a claim on behalf of someone else, they then try to redirect those funds to their own pocketbooks. So what are we doing about this? First off is we are hiring in the process of hiring more than 100 people to staff our fraud lines and basically take all the fraud tips that we have been getting. So far, we have processed over 55,000 fraud tips so far. We are then working with state and federal governments to share information, identify characteristics of the types of fraudulent claims that are being filed, and then we are updating our computer systems to try and catch those, and in order to match those characteristics with the claims that are being filed in order to stop the money from going out in the first place. So by doing and then we are also continuing to work with state and federal governments to recover the ill-gotten funds. And this is the good news. This morning, our Commissioner, Susie Levine, announced that we, through our work by working with various banks and law enforcement officers, we have been able to recover over $300 million of ill-gotten funds. So $300 million are previously taken from the department have been returned back to us. One of the other things that we are doing is that we have been pausing payments for a few days in order to basically make sure that the funds that we are paying are going to legitimate claimants. And this is one of the unfortunate things about the unemployment fraud is if by delaying payment to the fraudsters, we're also delaying payment to legitimate claimants. And so this has also held up payments for legitimate people who are requiring and relying on that money in order to meet their own needs, to pay their rents, to feed their families. And we apologize for that. We are sorry for that. And that is, I think, one of the personally saddest things that we've as a result of this, because we're out here trying to help people and the thieves are taking advantage of it. So, but one of the nice things about our fraud efforts in order to update our computer systems, work with other states and federal law enforcement and state law enforcement in order to identify who the crooks are, is that we are also able to by pinpointing who the crooks are, we're also able to free up and release funds to the legitimate claimants. And so just last night, we cleared 55,000 claims that had pauses placed on their accounts because we were able to identify them as legitimate claims, and then we released the funds to them. So folks may be wondering how this impacts you both as business owners and also as potential claimants yourselves, either through the federal pandemic unemployment assistance, which is available to the self-employed, or if you're an employee yourself, or if you have your own employees. First, individuals who are victims of imposter fraud, who have claims filed on their behalf without their knowledge, permission, or consent, you do not have to pay back those funds. And also, this will not impact your ability to file a legitimate claim in your own right. So if later down the road, if you have previously been a victim of imposter fraud and you need to use the unemployment system for legitimate reasons for your own benefit, we can do that. This will not prevent you from filing your own claim. And then for employers, these imposter fraud payments also will not be charged against your tax rates for future years. If you're a reimbursable employer, meaning you're like a charity or a unit of local government that reimburses the department for the unemployment benefits we pay out, we're not going to ask you to repay those benefits back. So as employers, this doesn't impact your tax rates, and as claimants, you're not going to be asked to pay this back, and you're not going to be, and this will not impact your ability to file a claim in the future. Things that you, our audience, can help us out with. One, if you get a letter notifying you that you have filed a claim, when you didn't, please call us, 800-246-9763. That is our fraud hotline. I'll type that into the chat here. Again, that is 800-246-9763. That's our fraud hotline. Please call us, let us know. For folks who, we've also had some claimants who have, or some individuals who had their identity stolen. The thieves forgot to change the address to which the bank cards and the payments were being sent to. And so all of a sudden they're getting debit cards with unemployment benefits in the mail, and they're calling us back and saying, hey, we're happy to give this back to you. This isn't our fund. So if that happens to you, thank you. We'll take those funds back. As an employer, if you get a letter that one of your employees has filed a claim when they didn't, again, call that number, let us know. And then also, as an employer, you may receive instructions or notices that saying, hey, Tara has filed a claim. I was just on a webinar with her at 3 o'clock. She's clearly still employed. You can respond to us in writing, let us know that your account should not be charged on the form that we're sending to you. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. Sorry that this has been an issue, but we're working around the clock. This is my up till 2 o'clock in the morning reading federal guidance stubble here. So, all right, thanks.
No, looks great, and that was a great update. Is there anything right now that anyone can do to kind of research if their name has been compromised?
So
name or account?
At this point, some folks have advocating trying to file just trying to file a claim, seeing if that if you by trying to fake file your own claim, or at least start the process of filing the claim without actually following through to see if your account has been or if your information has been stolen. I don't know if that's actually true. Some people have recommended it. We're not going to discourage it, but I'm not going to encourage it either. But the best thing that you can do is pay attention to your emails, pay attention to your mailboxes, and check in with your employer. Sometimes your employers have gotten these things as well, and because when people file claims, we let them know and we let their employers know. And through those ways, that's the best way to let us know when something has happened that shouldn't have happened.
I've got a quick question.
Go ahead.
So, that's funny. So this happened to my husband. And we found out by getting a letter that was like, hey, you've been on unemployment for 2 months now. Here are some other options for ways to make money. And he was like, huh? And it was backdated to March 15th. But my question was, we got a card in the mail from Green Dot Bank that was to somebody else's name, a Chinese name, that but was connected to his account. So we called Green Dot. Would you like us to give you guys that information too?
Yeah, please call our fraud hotline. Okay. We have more information at esd.wa.gov. Yeah, we'll take whatever information we can get. And so, and I've posted the link there to our fraud webpage where you can do a fraud reporting form. Give us a call, let us know. We've got a lot more people on the fraud lines working through this spike of unemployment imposter fraud.
Yeah, and that's the other thing at the City of Puyallup, HR had suggested that people set up SAW accounts. And what was interesting was that our head of HR set up a saw account for herself, and that's how she discovered that she had also had fraud happen. So when she tried to put in her social number. So yeah.
Okay, and we don't know if that is a panacea, that's going to prevent all instances of your identity being used to file claims. So we're not going to encourage people to do that, but that's something we're also not going to discourage people from doing either.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. And so I'll kind of turn it to our audience. We'll do an update from our officials at the end, but I think while the flow of this conversation is going and I'm seeing questions coming in, I'd rather just take advantage of you being able to ask your question directly to Tommy or to Scott. Lori, I don't know if you've been tracking or if there's any of the previous questions you want to recap, but.
Yeah, it looks like, well, there's a question about if 300 million was recovered, how much was lost to begin with? And I did a quick search online and I didn't see the answer to that question. Is that something, Scott, that you could answer or no?
That is something that we have not publicly disclosed, and I am not, even in private channels, I haven't been informed of that number.
Okay, I suspected that, but I thought I would ask. I also am seeing, some comments about this business bookkeeper goes to their site and checks every day to see if former employees filed, and most of the time the employer would be notified. As I scan through the questions, I think most of them have been answered, but I'm curious about the adjudication process. I keep hearing that there are many people who have filed claims that are still in adjudication. Sorry, that's a tough word. And how, timeline wise, do you guys think you can catch up with the backlog there?
So one of the things that our commissioner launched, I think it's been about 2 weeks ago now, was Operation 100%, which is a targeted effort to clear the backlogs and get people paid who are ready to be paid and eligible to be paid. One of which is continuing to increase the number of people we have hired, employed in order to continue to process and adjudicate claims and answer phones. Back in the middle of March, our agency was scaled for about 7,000 claims a week because we had been enjoying in this country and in the state years of really low unemployment. And so when there are fewer customers to serve, there are fewer of us within the agency hired and working in order to process those claims. Obviously, what happened almost overnight was a tenfold increase in the amount of people filing claims, both as a result of the drastic shutting down of the economy in order to help battle COVID, but also as a result of the federal benefits that came through the CARES Act. So that launched and opened eligibility to a whole large segment of the economy that were never eligible for unemployment benefits to begin with, such as the self-employed business owners and independent contractors. And so through those two things, we're glad that we launched this, but we're still continuing to increase the number of people on our team in order to deal with that spike. We're also continuing to program our computers in order to clear the what we call the quick wins, using computer profiles to see what are some things that we can do to find okay, these are adjudicable issues, but really, we can just, based off what the information we already have, we can just clear that out and release payments. So that's a large chunk of it. At this point, the majority of claims that have not been filed, which is 323,000 claims are still awaiting payment. Most of those are just cases where somebody has not filed a weekly claim. Because with unemployment, you have to claim week after week. Just filing your initial claim is not enough to get benefits on a recurring basis. I imagine some of those initial claims that haven't filed a weekly claim may be fraudsters that we prevented from receiving any money. Also, there have been some people who have been denied an initial claim who are potentially eligible for a federal claim that haven't actually gone forward and filed a federal claim. So that's also a huge chunk of the money. So the majority of the people who haven't been paid yet, we just need them to take some sort of action in order to get paid. And then right now we have about 44,000 people who are currently in adjudication with one or more issues that are currently being investigated. We made substantial progress over the last couple of weeks. For 1 week over the past couple of weeks, we did, reduce phone traffic in order to free up adjudicator time in order to clear issues. That has been pretty largely successful. And so we're continuing to look for quick wins, beef up our staff, and find creative solutions in order to keep these things moving.
Thank you. And I apologize if I'm missing some of these. It looks like a lot of these have been answered. but if I'm mistaken, please raise your hand. It looks like someone is saying, hi, I filed for unemployment from one of our staff members who was hired as a part-time employee, but also as a business owner. Received 2 checks, but I'm self-employed, and so all other claims have been denied. How can I refile as an out-of-work owner?
Okay, so for the folks who are self-employed or business owners, the first step to qualifying for unemployment benefits is to file a state unemployment claim, just a regular state claim. Most people who are self-employed and business owners won't qualify for a state claim, and that's by design. The state unemployment process does not normally insure business owners. So, but through the Department of Labor, they say we have to make them file a state claim first, and then they can be denied, just so we make sure that they're not eligible for a state claim before we start paying federal funds. It's federal money, so they're allowed to put whatever strings they want onto those funds. And so the second thing is to find the link. If you're using e-services or filing online, there should be a link on your account to file a Pandemic Unemployment Assistance or PUA account. PUA claim, and so that should appear on your e-services. If you're having issues, give us a call. We're beefing up the staff on our phone lines.
That's great to hear. So I might have a question here for Tommy regarding, and I don't know if you want to speak to this or not, but we heard today that I was speaking with someone today about this, that Snohomish County was applying to enter phase 2, even though their numbers weren't quite there as far as infections, and they were filing with CDC guidelines that said it was okay to treat infection rates differently if they were from a nursing home. And I don't know if in your advocacy efforts you could speak to that at all.
Yeah,
I know Pierce County's in that situation too. So
yeah, I've heard that. That's not an area I've been involved with. I know that there is the efforts that I've been more apprised of are the efforts of businesses who want to be considered essential that are not considered essential, where they're still not in the right phase for their business to reopen. So I could advise on that in the process with the Department of Commerce, but I'm not able to speak on that particular situation.
Okay. I just thought that we would ask, and perhaps we have someone else on the call. Tara, I didn't know if you wanted to now take the time to go to our public officials.
Yeah, I'll circle around. I just had a couple clarifying questions for Scott. So those that have received unemployment, it's not that a second claim, was fraud not taking place with them? It would only be people that have not applied or part of that pool?
Yeah, so our understanding is that with the impostor fraud, it's for folks who have not filed a claim.
Okay.
So if you find all of a sudden that, you go into your account and your address has been changed or your banking account information has been changed, that may be a sign that somebody has tried to access your account without your permission. But I haven't heard of an instance of that happening. So I think for the most part, the typical scenario is people who have not filed claims yet.
So I'm seeing a question that just came in right now in parallel to you answering that, and they are indicating that they are on unemployment and have been waiting for a payment for 2 weeks and was a victim of imposter fraud. So what should they do? They fixed their account information and changed login and passwords. So I'm assuming they're new to unemployment, so probably the others filed before them. Is that probably what happened, or what can you say on that?
It's tough to know without actually diving into the questioner's account on the computer, which, I mean, this is way too public of a forum to start doing that.
Correct.
But I would encourage the person who asked that question to please give us a call. They may have received a letter asking them to provide documents verifying their identity, such as a social security card, driver's license, those types of things, which will hopefully, which if you send those in, we're working through those in order to identify and free up the funds for folks who have legitimately filed.
Perfect. And as far as, and I'm asking this for somebody that I was with this weekend who received a phone call that had said they thought that potentially their funds or account was, or the filings have been done in a fraudulent manner, and you may be responsible to paying it all back. And I don't know if that's, and in this case, this person really is legitimately unemployed and there would be no reason to suspect that, but I don't know if that's signaling, you know, because potentially someone else was tapping into that person because of fraud, if that's signaling ESD to contact people in that manner, and are those the types of communications you would do, or could you expect that these fraudulent folks are making those kind of calls as well, or is it just really tapping into the money?
So we have noticed that there are some people who are taking advantage of the situation and trying to reach out to folks in order to further the scam.
Okay.
So that is possible. The other things that have been that we are doing is that if we suspect a claim may have been fraudulently filed, it has some characteristics that are consistent with what we've seen with previously fraudulently filed claims, is we will send out a letter saying, hey, please verify your identity. We suspect there may be some fraud, that this has been a fraudulently filed claim. Please get back to us with the information we need in order to substantiate this claim. And we may pause payment on that claim for a week or a few days until we can clear that account and make sure that that's happened. If we do establish that it has been fraudulently filed, we will issue an overpayment, require whoever that was to pay it back. But if it is a true case of imposter fraud, we're not going to make the real victim pay it back.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
How do we get Chinese assistance for non-English speaking people on the written application, and the phone number that's called to ask for another language assistant goes to English, not anything else? But is there any way to get help for Chinese speaking?
So for folks who do speak who are not English and Spanish speakers, we do have a translation service that we use with the folks who answer the phones. So if somebody calls in and we need an interpreter to get on the line, we do have a service that we contract with where they can bring an interpreter on the line, and they can work with the claimant and the agent in order to work through that information and get that claim filed.
Okay.
I'm seeing another question that didn't get answered because I didn't understand it the first time. But if somebody tried to log in to SAW and there is another email address associated with her account, she's already submitted the fraud form and she doesn't know what to do next because she can't even get into her SAW account at this point.
That's a good question. My best guess would probably be call us on the phone. We'll see what we can do to clear that away and get you full control of your SAW account back.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you. I know we've got.
My Chinese friend has been given a notice automatically generated to file an appeal. And is there any Chinese representatives that they speak to that can handle adjudication to avoid the appeal process?
So for appeals, your person can submit a letter, and your friend can submit a letter in whichever language is their native language. It will then be translated. One of the first things we do with any appeal is we look at the letter itself, we read the letter itself, and if it's something that we can redetermine without having to send over to a judge to adjudicate, we will do that. If it's something that does need to be adjudicated in front of a judge, it will be sent to the Office of Administrative Hearings. They also have access to interpreters, and the documents can be translated for both the judge and the person who needs to file the appeal.
Great. We've done a great job answering the questions. I know we have a couple representatives on the phone that may have updates as well, and I'd like to get to that real quick. Gary Westcott, if you are still on the line with Pierce County, I know, very recently you had the great news about the PPEs that have been provided to businesses, but let us know again about that and what the schedule is for getting that out to everyone.
Yes, thanks, Tara. We are in the finalizing process of notifying everyone, hopefully by tomorrow, for the people that have submitted online on our website for the PPE, which includes non-surgical disposable face masks and a thermometer. We will let them know where to go to pick up their product. Due to the overwhelming nature of submissions, we have almost 4,000 businesses that have submitted requests. We're trying to divide up the areas into 7 districts and to get out to spread it out a little bit. And some of the concentrated, like Tacomas, Puyallups, Lakewoods, we may have to do a couple different days. So we're going to try to assign days. So please watch your emails. And if we can follow the instructions as best as we can, because we want to make this a win for everyone, and that we have plenty of the supply. We have to make it logistically possible to get it out without causing gridlock and issues with traffic control and all those things. So we will be emailing out those businesses that have submitted, and we'll have times and dates and locations for those, and it'll be throughout the county. And then we'll have follow-ups to that too.
Great. Well, that's all good news. Thank you.
Yeah.
Meredith from City of Puyallup.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick update. So Patty Denny at the beginning of this was asking about something that we're actually working on right now. So the city's economic recovery team, which is made up of people all throughout the city, we've been working on some various options to help businesses through the pandemic by giving them space that they need to serve customers during social distancing requirements and occupancy reductions that we're likely to see through phase 2 and phase 3 of the governor's reopening plan. So we heard loud and clear that local businesses need options for a new way to operate in new times. So next Tuesday, we're going to be sharing ideas for city council consideration and direction from our city council on which items we want to move forward. And those will include additional sidewalk use for dining table seating and retail sales. It'll include an option for parklets. So that's basically building in a little park in a current parallel parking spot. Those would be adjacent to businesses and ones that a business would ask for that and be a partner in building a little seating space in a current parking spot on a parallel parking area. Another option is to close a side street or an alley for an outdoor cafe space and for shopping space, any other spaces that might be needed for social distance measures to help our businesses in our retail cores. Another one that Patty brought up earlier is temporary tent dining for businesses that have on-site parking lots that they can turn their parking lot into a dining space during the duration of this. And so that would be kind of like Bourbon Street in downtown Puyallup that puts up a big tent in their parking lot for Mardi Gras each year. So that might be what that looks like. And as part of that, we would be waiving any off-site parking requirements for them. And then the last one is looking at retail pop-ups and potential for some regular night markets and some other things like that to allow the public use of right-of-way for some of those different efforts. I know it's been really difficult for businesses. We're all waiting with bated breath right now to figure out when we can actually reopen here in Pierce County. And so we're really looking at a number of different options. Tune in next Tuesday to the City Council meeting if you want to see the presentation on some of these different options and hear what the council has to say. Our hope from staff is that we'll turn this into a pilot program that we can do pretty rapidly. So it would be an administrative program to move forward. And I think that's it.
Good news. Excellent. I'm not sure that we have Ryan on the phone any longer or if there's an update from Sumner. And then anything else from our state? All right, Hannah, did you still have a question? I know you had one earlier, or are you good? Or did you have a question of the panelists?
I just privately messaged Scott, so hopefully we'll probably have to connect via email, but thank you so much.
Okay, well, Tommy and Scott, it was relevant, timely information and presented so well, and just really appreciate you being here today and look forward to staying connected with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in. We will see you next Thursday. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the sunshine.